Good evening, dear students. Is it visible?
Yes, I'm visible, sir.
Is it visible? Good evening, dear students. Is it visible
Yes,
to all
sir.
of you?
I'm visible, sir.
Okay. So in yesterday class, I have discussed about fundamentals of soil mechanics. In today's class, I am going to discuss about index properties of soil mass. The soil properties are divided into two types: index properties and engineering properties. So index properties means the properties which depend on individual soil grain and also soil formation are known as index properties. The properties which depends upon individual soil grain and also group of soil. So the such type of properties are known as index properties. So these properties are useful for classification of identification of soils. In order to identify the soil, which type of soil it is, so index properties are useful. So index properties also gives rough estimation of engineering behavior of soil mass. So for example, if liquid limit of soil is more, it indicates the soil is more compressible. If liquid limit is less, the soil settlement will be less. Like that, index properties also gives the rough estimation of engineering behavior of the soil mass. So index properties again divided into two types: soil grain properties, soil aggregate properties. Soil grain properties and soil aggregate properties. Soil grain properties means the properties which are dependent on individual soil grain and are independent of manner of soil formation. So how the soil formation, how the soil is formed, it is not important. So it depends only on individual soil grain. So these properties are also known as properties of coarse grain soils. The soil grain properties are belongs to are related to only coarse grain soils. So the properties of these categories are size, shape, specific gravity, and mineralogical classification. So soil grain properties includes size of the soil grain, shape of the soil grain, and the specific gravity of the soil grain, and the clay mineralogy of the soil particles. So coming to soil aggregate properties, soil aggregate properties depends upon soil mass as a whole. So soil grain properties depends upon only on individual soil grain. Here soil aggregate property depends upon soil mass as a whole. So if you take your classroom, so the behavior of a single student is known as just like imagine soil grain properties. So the group of students, the behavior of group of the class is known as soil aggregate. It is just like a soil aggregate properties. The soil aggregate properties depends on soil mass as a whole. It represents the collective behavior of the soil mass. It represents the collective behavior of the soil mass. So the properties in this category are water content, water content, unit weight, relative density, and attribute limits. So soil aggregate properties are related to or belongs to soil mass as a whole, and they includes unit weight, water content, relative density, and attribute limits. So coming to engineering properties, the properties of soil which are utilized by civil engineer. So index properties are needed for geologists and also agriculturalists. So for agriculturists also needed index properties, and geologists also need to study the index properties of the soil mass. At the same time, soil engineer also need to study the index properties of the soil mass. But engineering properties, the properties of soil which are utilized by civil engineer to design and maintain stability of structures are called engineering properties. So to maintain the stability of the structure, we need some properties of the soil mass. So such type of properties are known as engineering properties. So these properties are needed only for civil engineers. So these properties are needed to maintain the stability of the structure. So the properties included in this category are permeability, seepage, consolidation, shear strength, and bearing capacity of the soil mass. So permeability, seepage, consolidation, shear strength, and bearing capacity of the soil mass are related to engineering properties. So soil properties are divided into two categories: index properties and engineering properties. Index properties are again divided into two types: soil grain properties and soil aggregate properties. So soil grain properties are related to individual soil grain. Soil aggregate properties are related to group of soil mass, and engineering properties are needed to only for civil engineers. So soil grain properties include size, shape, and specific gravity and clay mineralogy. Soil aggregate properties includes unit weight, water content, relative density, and topographic limits. So engineering properties includes permeability and seepage, consolidation, shear strength, bearing capacity, and stability of slopes. So now I'm taking the one by one soil grain properties. Shape. Based on this shape, soil grain is classified as bulky grain, flaky grain, and elongated grains are needle shaped grains. So bulky grains with the length, width, and thickness of soil particles are same order of magnitude. That means almost all equal. The length, width, and thickness of the soil grain is almost all equal. Such type of grain is known as bulky grains. So bulky particles are again divided as angular, subangular, and well-rounded. So angular, the particles with high value of angularity of with a high value of angularity resist the displacement but have more tendency for fracturing. Triangular means all particles are very sharp edges. The particles have the sharp edges. Such type of particles are having more friction. That's why it resists the displacement, but it have more tendency for fracturing. So well-rounded particles. The particles with low angularity, they don't crush easily under loads, but have low resistance to displacement. So if load is applied, so lateral displacement of soil particles will be taken takes place. So such type of soils are known as well-rounded. So they don't crush, but angular particles are crushed, but resist displacement. But here, well-rounded particles are not crushed, but have the low resistance to displacement. Load is applied, movement of soil particles will be takes place. In the case of well-rounded particle, but in the case of angular particles, friction is more, so lateral displacement will be less. So coming to flaky grains, the grains which have very negligible thickness when compared to other dimensions. So length, width, and thickness. The thickness is negligible. You see, it look like a paper, or it like a leaf. The grains which have very negligible thickness when compared to other dimensions are known as flaky grains. So these grains are crushed easily under loads. So next one is elongated or needle-shaped grains. So length is more when compared to thickness and width. So length, width, thickness, three dimensions, but length is considerable. Length is more when compared to thickness and width of the grain. So these grains are crushed easily under loads and stable when subjected to vibration. So the grains are such type of grains are crushed easily under loads and stable when subjected to vibration. So only angular particles are recommended for the construction, and well-rounded flaky grains and elongated are not recommended for the construction purpose. So coming to specific gravity, it is the ratio of weight of soil to the weight of equivalent volume of water. So it is determined by the following methods: density bottle method, measuring flask method, and the pictometer method. So density bottle method suitable for fine grain soils, measuring flask method suitable for medium grain soils, pictometer method. So this is the gate question. Please remember, pictometer method is useful for all types of soils to determine the specific gravity. The specific gravity is defined as it is the weight of soil divided by weight of equivalent volume of water. So W2 minus W1. W1 means empty weight of pictometer. W2 equal to weight of pictometer plus dry sample. W3 equal to weight of pictometer plus dry sample plus water. W4 equal to weight of pictometer plus full of water. So here W2 minus W1 will give the weight of dry soil. Next, W2 minus W1 minus W3 minus W4 will give the weight of equivalent volume of water. So generally specific gravity is expressed at 27 degrees or 4 degrees. So please remember, generally specific gravity is expressed at 27 degrees or 4 degrees centigrade. So specific at 27 degrees centigrade or 4 degrees centigrade is equal to specific gravity at room temperature. Suppose the room temperature 30 degrees, specific gravity at room temperature. Next, specific gravity at 30 degrees separate, uh, specific gravity of the water at 27 degrees centigrade or 4 degrees centigrade. divided by specific gravity at 27 degrees or 4 degrees of centigrade. So specific gravity of the soil mass at room temperature into, so G30 means specific gravity of water, specific gravity of soil at room temperature. Next, specific gravity of water at 30 degree room temperature divided by specific gravity of water. If you want to report at 27 degrees, specific gravity of water at 27 degrees centigrade. If you want to report at 4 degrees centigrade, specific gravity of water at 4 degrees centigrade. So that is a formula to convert the room temperature, specific room temperature to 27 degrees or 4 degrees. So generally, specific gravity is expressed at 27 degrees or 4 degrees. Generally, in laboratory, we will find the specific at room temperature. In order to report the specific at 27 degrees or 4 degrees centigrade, we need to use this formula. So let us imagine 30 degrees the room temperature. So specific gravity of the soil at 30 degrees temperature or room temperature into here specific gravity of water at 30 degrees centigrade divided by, that means 30 degrees means room temperature divided by specific gravity. If you want to report 27 degrees Celsius, specific gravity of water at 27 degrees centigrade, or if you want to report at 4 degrees centigrade, specific gravity at 4 degrees centigrade, specific gravity of water at 4 degrees centigrade. So numerator and denominator related to specific gravity of water. Here G30 degrees is known as specific gravity of soil at room temperature. So coming to size, the shape is over size, sieve analysis and sedimentation analysis. In order to determine the size of the particle, we will conduct a sieve analysis or sedimentation analysis. So sieve analysis used dry sieve analysis. Again, sieve analysis is used for only coarse grain soil. Sedimentation analysis is used for fine grain soil. So when the grain size is greater than 75 micron, I sieve, then it is called as a coarse grain soil. If the soil particle size is less than 75 micron, I sieve, it is called as a fine grain soil. So sieve analysis is used only for coarse grain soil, whereas sedimentation analysis is used for fine grain soil. So sieve analysis is again divided into dry sieve analysis and wet sieve analysis. Sedimentation analysis again divided into pipette analysis and hydrometer analysis. Particle size distribution. The grain size distribution curve is obtained by sieve analysis and sedimentation analysis. So dry sieve analysis is used for cohesion-less soils. Wet sieve analysis is used for cohesive soils or soil containing fines, because the sand particle may be surrounded by or attached by clay particles, so that the grain size will be more. If you conduct dry sieve analysis, what will happen? It will retain on because of grain size is more, it will retain on greater size. That's why wet sieve analysis is done for cohesive soils containing fines. So wet sieve analysis. So here water is used to wash the soil. That's why the soil around the particle will be removed. Because of this wet sieve analysis, the real size of the particle will come into picture. That's why wet sieve analysis is used for cohesive soils or soil containing fines. The sieve analysis is conducted for coarse grain soils. Sedimentation analysis is used for fine grain soils. The sedimentation analysis is based on Stokes law. So please remember, sedimentation analysis is based on Stokes law. It is a get one mark question. Sedimentation analysis is based on Stokes law. So Stokes law means, Stokes law says that in an infinite depth of water, if a single sphere is allowed to fall freely, the terminal velocity of sphere depends upon shape, size, and weight of the sphere. So in an infinite depth of water, if you allow the single sphere is to fall freely, so first gradually the velocity is increased, then due to drag force the velocity will be decreased, but finally it will attain a constant velocity, which is known as terminal velocity. The terminal velocity of the sphere depends upon shape, size and weight of the sphere. So Stokes law says that in an infinite depth of water, if a single sphere is to allowed to fall freely, its velocity is increased first under the influence of gravity. So up to certain depth, it will the velocity of the spherical particle will be more due to gravitational force. But drag force comes into action and reduces the velocity. So after adjustment the sphere, it attains a steady state velocity, constant velocity. This constant velocity is known as terminal velocity. So this terminal velocity depends upon shape, size, and weight of the sphere. Suppose if the shape of the sphere is needle shaped, it will take more time to set it. If the shape of the sphere is suppose the shape of sphere is rounded, it will take less time to set it. The size of sphere is small, it will take less time. The size of sphere is less small, it will take more time to settle down. If the weight of the sphere is more, so it will settle down fastly. If the weight of the sphere is light, it will take more time to settle down at the bottom of the water. So Stokes law states that terminal velocity depends upon shape, size, and weight of the sphere. So you can see the terminal velocity formula. So terminal velocity equal to 1 by 18 into d square, gamma s minus gamma w by dynamic viscosity of water. So d is known as diameter of the particle, gamma s equal to unit weight of the particle, mu equal to dynamic viscosity of water, v equal to kinematic viscosity of water. It is a ratio of dynamic viscosity divided by density of water. The approximate version of Stokes law. So after taking all the values of standard values in this formula, if you substitute unit weight of water 9.81 and dynamic viscosity of water and also specific gravity and also diameter of the particle, everything if you add everything standard, all standard values are if you add in this terminal velocity, so the formula becomes terminal velocity equal to 900 into d square, where Vs is known as terminal velocity, d is known as diameter of the particle in millimeters. So for a particle diameter of 75 microns, so what will be the terminal velocity? So Vs equal 900 into d square. So 1 micron equal to 1 by 1000 millimeters. So d equal to 75 micron, 1 by 1000 millimeters, 1 by 1000 millimeters to 75 into 10 power minus 3. So terminal velocity equal 900 into 75 into 10 power minus 3 whole square. So here terminal velocity equal to 5 mm per second. So limitations of So Stokes law consider that the velocity of free fall of a single sphere in a suspension of infinite depth, whereas the size analysis of glass of limited depth is used. So in the case of Stokes law, it states that uh, Stokes law says that an infinite depth of water, but we are using here a glass jar. Glass jar has a limited depth. That is the limitation of Stokes law. So theoretically, it states that infinite depth of water, but practically we are using a glass jar here. So the depth of the glass jar is limited. That is the first limitation of the Stokes law. Next, Stokes law is assumed that the fallen of a spherical sphere, but soil particles never truly spherical. Huh? Oh, sir. Stokes law is based on assumption that fallen of a spherical sphere, but soil particles never truly spherical. They are usually flaky or needle shaped. So Stokes law states that you can see here. States that infinite depth of water if a single sphere is allowed to fall freely. So here sphere shape is spherical shape. But in practical, the soil particles are never truly spherical, so they are usually flaky or needle shaped. So sedimentation analysis can't be used for soil particles larger than 0.2 mm. So sedimentation analysis can't be used for soil particles larger than 0.2 mm because turbulent flow conditions develops and Stokes law is not applicable. So Stokes law is applicable only for laminar flow conditions. If the particle size is 0.2 mm, it creates a turbulent flow conditions. That's why Stokes law is not applicable. So sedimentation analysis is not applicable for particle size less than 0.2 microns because Brownian movement takes place and particle does not settle. So Brownian movement means the soil particles moves slowly downward direction but without settling. Again it comes to upward direction. So like that, the particle continuously in movement, not settling. Instead of settling, it continuously moves into the water. That's why Brownian movement takes place. Settlement will not be caused. That's why Stokes law is valid only if the size of the particle is between 0.2 mm and 0.2 microns. So please remember it is a gate question. Stokes law is valid only if the size of the particle is between 0.2 mm and 0.2 microns. Sedimentation analysis. So pipette method is the standard sedimentation method used in laboratory. It is an accurate method. So pipette method when compared to so we have only two methods in sedimentation analysis. One is pipette method. Second one is hydrometer method. So pipette method is the standard sedimentation method used in laboratory. It is an accurate method. So dispersion solution containing 33 grams of the sodium hexametaphosphate and 7 grams of sodium carbonate in distilled water to make 1 liter of solution. So, in order to create repulsive forces, so because the soil, the sand particles are attached with clay particles, fines, that means clay particles. So, in order to create repulsive forces, dispersion solution is added. So, this dispersion solution consists of 33 grams of sodium hexametaphosphate and 7 grams of sodium carbonate in distilled water. So, and distilled water is taken 100 ml, then 33 grams of sodium hexametaphosphate is added, and 7 grams of sodium carbonate is added to this distilled water. So that we need to make it 1 liter solution. So, 33 grams of sodium hexametaphosphate and 7 grams of sodium carbonate. Please remember this is a gate question. The dispersion solution consists of 33 grams of sodium hexametaphosphate and 7 grams of sodium carbonate is added to distilled water to make 1 liter of solution. So the process of removal of organic matter and calcium compounds is known as pre-treatment. So before conducting the sedimentation analysis, we need to remove the organic matter from the soil mass. So the process of removal of organic matter and calcium compounds from the soil is known as pre-treatment. So the hydrometer method of sedimentation analysis differs from the pipette analysis in the method of taking observations only. So we have two methods, pipette method and hydrometer method. So both are differ only in taking observations only. Remaining things are same. So both methods are based on Stokes law. In the reading correct only the method differs in taking observations only. So we will have some corrections in the hydrometer reading. That correction is also very important. So meniscus correction CM in hydrometer is always positive. So please remember meniscus correction is CM is always positive. So dispersing agent correction CD is always negative. Next temperature correction is positive when greater than 27 degrees centigrade and negative when less than 27 degrees centigrade, because depending upon the temperature the unit weight of water may be decrease or increase. That's why sometimes it may become positive and sometimes it becomes negative. So temperature correction is positive when greater than 27 degrees centigrade and negative when less than 27 degrees centigrade. So the hydrometer readings increase in the downward direction towards hydrometer bulb. So please remember this is also a gate question. The hydrometer reading increases in downward direction towards the hydrometer bulb. So when you come from top to bottom of the readings, the hydrometer readings increases. So reading is taken corresponding to the upper level of the meniscus. So always we need to take the readings corresponding to the upper level of the meniscus. Next, particle size distribution curve. So this is very important. So particle size distribution curve, it is a curve drawn between cumulative percentage final and particle size taking in logarithmic scale. So the curve is drawn between cumulative percentage final in vertical axis. You can see here cumulative percentage final is taken in y-axis. Next, the particle size is taken in logarithmic scale in abscissa or x-axis. It indicates the particle size in mm taking in logarithmic scale. Next, it gives the idea about the type of soil and gradation of the soil. The particle size distribution curve gives the idea about type of soil and gradation of the soil. So a curve situated higher up on left hand side of the graph is known as fine grain soil. You can see here a curve situated higher on left hand side is known as fine grain soil. So the number is 1 here. So example, fat clay. So fat clay always situated higher on left hand side. A curve situated far away from y-axis is known as coarse grained soil. So you can see here a curve which is situated very far away from the y-axis is known as coarse grained soil. A curve with a hump represents gap bearded soil as skip bearded soil. So number number five, you can see here number five. A curve with a hump is indicates the gap bearded soil. Gap bearded soil means some intermediate particle sizes are missing. Next, a flat S curve represents a soil which contains the particles of different sizes in good proportions, such as called as the well-graded soil. So, a flat S curve, so it indicated by two. Number two, a flat S curve indicates the well-graded soil. That means fine grained soil, coarse grained soil, and medium size grains they are equally proportioned. Next example for well-graded soil as glacier deposit soil, drifts, till, moraines, and drumlins. A steep S curve indicates the soil containing the particles of almost the same size. A steep S curve. So you can see here a steep S curve. Number three, a steep S curve indicated by number three indicates the soil containing the particles of almost the same size. Such soil is known as uniformly graded soil. So example, alien deposit soils are example for uniform deposit soils. So they can be indicated by a steep S curve, dunes and Lewis. Effective size or effective diameter is known as D10. So D10 is known as effective size or effective diameter. It is expressed in mm. It means only 10% of particles are finer than this size. So D10 means 10 particles, 10% of particles are finer than this size. So for D10 we will have one size. If you take the soil and if you sieve it, only 10% of soil will be passes through the D10 size. D60 means 60% soils are finer than that size. D30 means 30% soils are finer than that size. So we have two definitions here, coefficient of uniformity and coefficient of curvature. So coefficient of uniformity is given by D60 by D10. It is a measure of particle size range. So coefficient of uniformity is a measure of particle size range. It is always greater than or equal to 1. So it is always greater than or equal to 1. Sometimes it may be equal to 1, sometimes it may be greater than 1. A soil is called as uniformly graded if Cu coefficient of uniformity lies between 1 and 2. If Cu value is 1 and 2 lies in between 1 and 2, then it is called as uniformly graded soil. For a well graded gravel, Cu must be greater than 4. So if C is greater than 4, it is called as well-graded sand. Whereas for a well-graded sand, Cu must be greater than 6. If it is well-graded sand, Cu value should be greater than 6. Next parameter is coefficient of curvature Cc. So Cc equal to D30 square by D60 into D10. So coefficient of curvature represents the shape of particle size curve. So for well-graded soils, Cc lies between 1 and 3. For uniformly graded soil, Cc equal to 1. So please remember, if Cc value is between 1 and 3, that means 1, 2 and 3, then it is known as well-graded soil. For uniformly graded soil, Cc value equal to 1. That means D10, D60, D30, all values are same values. That's why Cc value becomes 1. So uses of particle size distribution curve. The particle size distribution curve gives the idea of type of soil and the gradation of soil. It is used for classification of coarse grained soils. Next, it gives rough idea about permeability of the soil. It is required for design of filters also. The particle size distribution curve is used for design of filters. It provides information of a rough estimation of shear strength of soil. For example, if it is well-graded soil, it will have high shear strength and low permeability, high density. If it is a uniformly graded soil, the compressible soil can be judged on the particle size distribution curve. The uniformly graded soil has more compressible than well-graded soil. Coming to the next property, soil aggregate properties. So we have relative density or density index. So more it is most important for coarse grain soil. So it is not used for fine grain soils. So generally only it is used for coarse grain soils. So relative density is most important for coarse grain soil. It indicates the relative compactness of this soil. Suppose your soil is in a loose condition or a medium dense condition or dense condition. So it indicates the denseness packing of the soil particles. So relative density equal to E max minus E divided by E max minus E minimum into 100. So E maximum equal to maximum void ratio in loosest condition. E minimum equal to minimum void ratio in densest state. E equal to natural void ratio. So the range of relative density ranges between 0 to 100. So relative density also can also be expressed in terms of density. So earlier equation is in terms of void ratio. This equation is in terms of dry unit weight. So gamma D minimum dry unit weight in loosest condition at a void ratio of E maximum. Gamma D equal to in situ dry unit weight at void ratio of E. Gamma D maximum dry unit weight in densest condition at a void ratio of E minimum. So if a dry density is given in the problem, we need to use this one. If a dry density are given in void ratio, so we can use this formula. Water content, soil aggregate. Next thing is next parameter of soil aggregate properties is water content. Water content equal to it is a ratio of weight of water to the weight of dry soil into 100. So determination of water content it can be done by oven drying method, calcium carbide method, alcoholic method, pyranometer method, and radiation method. So these five methods are used for determination of water content. So oven drying method, calcium carbide method, alcoholic method, pyranometer method, and radiation method. So oven drying method this is the most accurate method among the all. So temperature to be maintained in the oven is 105 degrees to 110 degrees for 24 hours. So oven drying method takes 24 hours and temperature to be maintained in the oven drying style is oven drying method is 105 degrees to 110 degrees. For highly organic sites, we need to use a low temperature for 60 degrees. For highly organic sites, temperature recommended is 60 degrees. If gypsum is present, temperature should not be more than 80 degrees centigrade, but for a long time. So gypsum is present, we can maintain a temperature of 80 degrees centigrade. So normally for normal soils, the temperature to be maintained in oven is 105 degrees to 110 degrees. The oven drying method takes 24 hours of time. The calcium carbide method, also known as rapid moisture meter method. So it is a portable equipment which can be conveniently used in the field as well. So the amount of acetylene gas released indicates the approximately the water content. So it is a quickest method of all. It takes only 10 minutes. So most accurate method is one time method. Quickest method is calcium carbide method. It is used in field. So it is a quickest method among all. It takes only 10 minutes. It is useful for field compaction of the soil. So radiation method. It is suitable to determine the water content of soil in situ condition in a borehole at required depth. So it is an in situ method. It is applied in the field radiation method. So X-ray alpha and beta rays are used in radiation method. Next, torsion balance method for quick determination of water content soil. We can use this method in laboratory. Alcoholic method. There is no control on temperature. In this method, so alcohol is mixed with water, then it is ignited. So there is no control in temperature. That's why this method is not suitable for organic soil and soil containing gypsum. So sand bath method, it is a field method. It gives high temperature which may break the crystalline structure of the soil mass. So this method is not useful for organic soil and soil containing gypsum because it will give the high temperature. It will give the high temperature which may break the crystalline structure of the soil mass. So this method is not suitable for organic soil and soil containing gypsum. So pyrometer method. So suitable for coarse grain soils only. But determination of specific gravity, pyrometer method is suitable for all types of soils, but Determination of water content, 5 kilometer method is suitable for core scale science only. You need to remember this difference. 5 kilometer method is used to determine specific gravity as well as the water content. But what specific determination of specific gravity, it is used for all types of soils. But for determination of water content, 5 kilometer method is used only for core scale soils. 1 minute. Next, soil aggregate property is in situ density method. So core cutter method, sand replacement method, rubber balloon method, water displacement method, and radiation method. The core cutter method it is used for only for soft soil because uh, we need to drive a core cutter into the soil mass. For that, the soil should be soft. That it should be used only for cohesive soils. For sandy soils, the sand will not be retained by the core cutter. That's why we can't use this core cutter method for sandy soils. It is only used for soft cohesive soils. The sand replacement method it is used for all types of soils provided the soil should be soft. So we can use for both for the clay soils as well as the sandy soils. But for digging a hole, it should be soft. We cannot use for rocky soils. The water displacement method, it is used for cohesive soils where it is possible to make a lump of soil. In water displacement method, we need to make a lump of soil. That's why it is used only for cohesive soils. We can make lump of soil in the case of cohesive soils only, but for sandy soils, it is not possible to make a lump of soil. So rubber balloon method, it is used for all types of soils, but it is not so accurate as it is difficult to fit the balloon exactly in a irregular hole. So rubber balloon method used for all types of soils, but there is a problem here because the balloon cannot be fit exactly in an irregular hole. That's why we cannot get accurate value. Radiation method is used for rocky soils or hard soils. It is a in situ method. Next, soil aggregate properties are Atterberg limits. So it is most easy for fine-grained soils. Atterberg divide the entire range from liquid to solid state in four stages: liquid state, plastic state, semi-solid state, and solid state. The Atterberg limits are the water contents at which soil mass passes from one state to another state. Suppose the water at which the soil changes from liquid state to plastic state is known as liquid limit. The water current which the soil state changes from plastic state to semi-solid state. It is known as plastic limit. The water content at which the soil changes from semi-solid state to solid state. It is known as shrinkage limit. So in liquid state, the soil is like a soup. In plastic state, the soil is like a soft butter. In semi-solid state, the soil is like a curd, and in solid state, the soil is just like a candy. So liquid limit is defined as it is the minimum water content at which the soil is still in the liquid state, but has a small shearing strength against flowing. So it is the minimum water content at which the soil is still in liquid state. Beyond this water content, the soil behaves like uh, the soil will go into the plastic state. So it is the minimum water content. So it is the Casagrande definition. It is the minimum water content at which a part of soil cut by a groove of standard dimensions will flow together for a distance of 12 mm under an impact of 25 blows in the device. That is the minimum water content at which part of soil cut by a groove of standard dimensions will flow together for a distance of 12 mm under impact of 25 blows in the device. So flow curve, uh, flow curve gives an idea of shear strength variation with the water content of the soil. So flow curve is on y-axis you take water content, and on x-axis we will take a number of blows. So flow index, it is the slope of the flow curve given by W1 minus W2 divided by log 10 N2 by N1. The soil passing through 425 micron AC is used for Atterberg limit test. So the drop of the cup on hard base is 1 centimeters. The shear strength of the soil at liquid limit is about 2.7 kilonewton per meter square. The next available limit is plastic limit. So Casagrande defined like this. It is the minimum water content at which soil can be rolled into a thread of 3 mm diameter without crumbling. So it is the minimum water content at which the soil can be rolled into a thread of 3 mm in diameter without crumbling is known as plastic limit. So it is determined by plastic limit test or thread test. The shrinkage limit is if it is the moisture content after which further loss of moisture does not cause a decrease in the volume of the soil. So as the water content evaporated, what will happen? The volume of the soil decreases. But after reaching such a stage, even if the water content is evaporated or removed, the soil must the volume of soil must becomes constant. So at the minimum water content at which further loss of moisture does not cause a decrease in the volume of the soil is known as shrinkage limit. The shrinkage limit is lowest water content at which a soil can still be completely saturated. So please remember, at shrinkage limit is the soil is still saturated. Get one more question. At shrinkage limit, the soil is still in saturation condition. The shrinkage limit, the shrinkage ceases. So after beyond the shrinkage limit, the volume or the volume becomes a constant and the shrinkage completely ceases. You can see here, so up to shrinkage limit, there is a decrease in volume. Y-axis it is a volume, x-axis it is a water content. Up to shrinkage limit, as the water content reduces, the volume gradually decreases. At shrinkage limit, still the soil is in the fully saturated condition. Beyond the shrinkage limit, even the water content reduces, volume becomes constant. That's why it is shown by a straight line. WS at shrinkage limit is shown by straight line. So it is a great question is a clay sample has a wide ratio of 0.50 in the dry condition. The grain specific gravity has been determined as 2.72. What is the shrinkage limit of the soil? So we have one relation SC equal to W into G. SC equal to W into G. Here S equal to degree of saturation. Degree of saturation, shrinkage limit degree of saturation equal to 100%. Still the water is on at shrinkage limit, still the water is in 100% saturation. That's why S is equal to 1. So E equal to W into G. So W equal to, next we can find out. So important indices. So we have a plasticity index, shrinkage index, toughness index, liquidity index, and the consistency index. So I will explain one by one. So the numerical difference between liquid limit and plastic limit is known as plasticity index. So liquid limit minus plastic limit. The numerical difference between liquid limit and plastic limit is known as plasticity index. So it is relatively more for plastic clay soils. So for plasticity index less than or equal to 0, the soil is treated as non-plastic. If the less than plastic index is less than 7, low plastic. The plasticity index is in between 7 to 17, medium plastic. If the plasticity index is greater than 17, the soil is treated as highly plastic. Shrinkage index. The numerical difference between plastic limit and shrinkage limit is known as shrinkage index. Toughness index. It is a ratio of plasticity index to the flow index. Is known as toughness index. So significance is if the toughness index, the value of toughness index is more, so better the strength of the soil mass at plastic limit. Next, liquidity index IL equal to natural water content minus water content plastic limit divided by plasticity index. The consistency index or relative consistency is given by water content at liquid limit minus natural water content divided by plasticity index. IP is known as plasticity index. WL is known as liquid limit minus W equal to natural water content. So consistency index is useful in the study of the field behavior of the saturated fine grained soil. So range is it can be greater than or less than 1. If IC is equal to 1, the soil is at its plastic limit. So IC is equal to 1. It indicates the soil at its plastic limit. If IC is equal to 0, the 0, the soil is at its liquid limit. If IC is greater than 1, the soil is in semi-solid state and stiff. If IC is negative, if it indicates that the nature of water content is greater than liquid limit and it hence behaves like a liquid. But an important point is, even though it is negative, if IC value is negative, we should be reported as positive. We should report as 0. Suppose if you get a value of -2, you should not show the value as -2. You should be reported as 0. So the liquidity index is also known as the water plasticity ratio. IC plus IL equal to 1 or 100%. So the next important aggregate soil aggregate property is activity. It is a ratio of the plasticity index, liquid limit minus plastic limit, to the percentage of the clay fraction is known as activity, IP by C. IP is known as the plasticity index. It is the numerical difference between liquid limit and plastic limit divided by C. C is known as the percentage of clay fraction. The swelling and shrinkage characteristics are represented by a number called activity number. Soil containing the clay mineral won't have very high activity, that is A is greater than 4. If activity is greater than 4, that contains the soil, it indicates the soil contains more component clay matter. If activity is less than 0.75, it indicates is a inactive. If the activity is in between 0.75 to 1.25, it is a normal active. If activity is greater than 1.25, it is called as active. So for a soil of specific origin, the activity is constant. So remodeling causes a loss of strength in cohesive soil mass. So thixotrophy, that means remodeling means disturbance. The disturbance causes loss of strength in cohesive soil. Thixotrophy, the phenomenon of regaining or loss of strength with the passage of time with no change in water content is known as thixotrophy. So thixotrophy means because of if you disturb the soil mass, what will happen? It loses its strength. If you left the soil mass for a long time, what will happen? Again, reorientation of soil particles takes place. So finally, again after some time, it will get original strength of the soil. So the property of regaining of strength as passage of time due to disturbance is known as thixotrophy. Next is consistency. So it is the resistance offered by soil against deformation. It is the resistance offered by a soil mass against deformation is known as consistency. So in liquid limit, the consistency is less. It is the resistance offered by a soil against deformation. Again deformation. That means when the soil is in liquid state, it doesn't have any resistance. It would flow like a liquid. So it is various. Consistency is varies with water content. So plasticity is a property which allows it to be deformed without rupture. So we can make the soil into our required shape without any cracks or crumbling. So here I am doing some gate problems. It is a gate problem. In grain size analysis of soil, the grain size values and corresponding percentage are obtained as given below. So this is the table given in the problem. So we need to find out Cu and Cc value. So from the table, it is we can identify that D10. That means D10 means uh, the percent 10% of soil is find that size. Here D10 you can see here 10% final D10. The size is 0.0075. For D60, the value is 1. C size is 1. For D30, C size equal to 0.3. So Cu equal to D60 by D10. So D60 equal to 1. D10 equal to 0.075. Cu value equal to 13.33. So Cc equal to D30 square by D60 into D10. So 0.3 whole square divided by 1 into, that means D60 equal to 1, D10 equal to 0.075, Cc value equal to 1.2. Second problem is, for a soil, coefficient of uniformity Ce equal to 6, Cc equal to 1.5, effective size of the soil is, that means D10 equal to 0.001 mm. Then we need to find out D30 size. So the problem CE value equal to 6, CC value equal to 1.5, D10 equal to 0.001 mm. So CE value equal to D60 by D10. So we need to find out D60. From the formula D60 equal to 6 into 0.001. So D60 equal to 0.006. So again we have CC value equal to D30 square by D10 into D60. So from this formula D30 square equal to, we can get some value. So D30 square root of that value equal to D30. It is equal to 0.003 mm. So one more gate question. The coefficient of curvature and coefficient of uniformity is 1 and 4 respectively. Find the ratio of D30 by D10. So CU value equal to 4, CC value equal to 1. So from CU D60 by D10, so D60 equal to 4 into D10. So CC value equal to D30 square by D60 into D10. By substituting CC value equal to 1 and uh, D10 D10 and D10 value. So D60 value equal to 4 and D10. D10 value equal to D10. We will get 1 equal to D30 square by 4 and D10 square. So D30 square by D10 square equal to 4. D30 by D10 whole square equal to 4. So square root of 4 equal to 2.0. So D30 by D10 equal to 2.0. So the next great question is the drained weight of a sandy soil in loosest condition is 13.34 kilogram per meter cube, and the densest state is 21.19 kilogram per meter cube. To determine the density index of the sand when the soil has a porosity of 33%. So take grain specificity as 2.68. So two values are in terms of dry density. That's why we can use this dry density formula to determine the density index. So gamma D max we know that, gamma D minimum also we know that. So E value equal to n by 1 minus n 0.492, gamma D equal to G gamma W by 1 plus C 17.98 kilonewton per meter cube. So we have gamma D minimum, gamma D max. ID equal to, we have the formula. From the formula, ID value equal to 69.66%. So one more formula, one more question in one more gate question in the case of density index and relative density. So the dry unit weight of sandy soil in loosest condition is 13.34 kilonewton per meter cube, and the densest state is 21.19 kilonewton per meter cube. So determine the density index of the sand when the soil can have a porosity of 33%. Take a grain specific gravity as 2.68. Here two wide ratios are given. That's why we can use this related density formula in terms of wide ratio. So we have E max. We can find out the E maximum and E minimum, and E value also given, or it can be find out by through E value n by 1 minus n. So finally we will get ID value equal to 69.35%. The problems on index properties. In liquid limit test, the water current for a 10 and another number of flows is 40% and 10% respectively. The flow index of soil is dash. The flow index is given by W2 minus W1 by log N1 by N2. So by substituting in this equation all the values in the equation, so we will get the flow index value. The second one is a soil sample has a shrinkage limit, has a water content of 10%, specific gravity 10%. The porosity of soil shrinkage limit is dash. So one thing the examiner wants to know here is if the student has the knowledge of shrinkage limit or not. So we have SC equal WG at shrinkage limit. Still the soil is in fully saturated condition. That's why degree of saturation is equal to 1. SC equal to WG, S is equal to 1, E equal to W into G, E equal to G, water content is 0.1%, the water content equal to 1%, so SC equal to W into G, E equal to 1, W into G 0.1 into 2.7. So 0.1% 1%, 1% 2.7. So 0.1% 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 1% 2.7. So So this is the problem to find out the activity of the clay. So the liquid limit and plastic limit of a soil are 100% 20% respectively. In hydromet analysis, it has been found that the soil consists of 50% clay fraction. We need to find out the activity of the soil, and we need to make a comment also. The activity equal to plasticity index divided by percentage of clay fraction. So plasticity index equal liquid limit minus plastic limit divided percentage of clay fraction equal to 50. So 100 minus 25 divided by 50, activity equal to 1. If the activity equal to 1.5, the soil is in active condition depending upon the standard values. So here one more get question. The soil has a liquid limit of 25%, flow index at 12.5%. If plastic limit of soil is 15%, you need to determine the plasticity index and toughness index. So water content soil is at its natural condition in the field is 25%. Find the liquidity index and soil consistency. So first the data given is liquid limit 25%, plastic limit 15%, plasticity index equal to liquid limit minus plastic limit. So 25 minus 15 equal to 10%. So toughness index is equal to IP by IT 10 by 12.5. The water content equal to 20%. So liquidity index equal to natural water content minus plasticity index. So plastic limit divided by plasticity index. So natural water content is 20 minus plastic limit equal to 25 divided by 10 into 100. So the value is negative. Even though it is negative, we should report it as a 0. Next, consistency index equal to liquid limit minus natural water content divided by plasticity index into 100. The liquid limit equal to 25, water content equal to 20, plasticity index equal to 10. So 25 minus 20 divided by 10 into 100 will give the consistency index. So with this, I have finished the uh, second chapter, index properties of the soil. So in next class, I am going to deal another chapter, effective stress principle. Rishwan, thank you so much for attending this class. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, I will wind up this class.